Hey everybody, today we're going to take a look at graphing and just review kind of how to graph coordinate pairs as well as some important graphing vocabulary. A couple things you need to be aware of. If you look at the black writing on the screen, we've got our coordinate grid, okay, and that's going to be made up of two axes, and I'm going to write that in red. We have our x-axis, which goes horizontal. And I'm going to do this in another color here. Let's do our y-axis, which is vertical or up and down. Okay, and then also every graph is broken into 4 quadrants. This is always the first quadrant. That's the second. This is the third. And that's our fourth. And finally, an important point to know on every graph is right in the center here. That's the origin. That's the point at 0, 0, kind of our starting point for all of our graphs. It's where our x and our y axes intersect. Now we'll talk about coordinate pairs quite a bit. Those are just basically points. So every coordinate pair is written in this form. You've got an x coordinate, and then you have a y coordinate, and they're separated by a comma and they're grouped in parentheses. And that's kind of the general format for how a point needs to be written. So what you look at here is if you have a point 3, 5, this first number 3 tells you how far you have to move on the x-axis, and the second number tells you how far you have to move on the y-axis, and they're both kind of starting from the origin. Okay, and we'll go through that on the next slide. So the first one shows you how far you go on the x-axis, so how far you're moving left or right, and the second number tells you how far you're moving up or down. Now let's take a look at how we can actually plot some coordinate pairs by using our coordinate grid. So again, just real quick review here. We've got it set up. We've got our x-axis horizontally and our y-axis set up vertically, and you can see as we move to the right from the origin, our x-coordinates are getting larger, right? Just like a number line. And as we move to the left, they're getting negative, they're getting smaller. Okay, same thing when you go up and down. Starting at 0, you go up and the numbers are getting bigger. You go down and the numbers are getting smaller. It's just like a thermometer. Okay, so let's say how we can use that to plot the point 6, 4. All right, well, the 6 is my x-coordinate, so that tells me that I need to move 6 positive steps to the right, starting from the origin, and then 4 is positive, so I'm moving up 4 units upwards. Okay, so follow along here. I start at the origin and I move over 6, then I go up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to plot my point right there. Okay, that's the point 6, 4. 6 to the right, 4 up. I have another one here, 2, 7. That tells me I have to go 2 to the right and 7 up. So when I go positive, it's always to the right, and if the y is positive, I move up. So I start at the origin and I go 2 to the right, and then I count up 7, and that's where I'm going to plot that point, which I'm going to call this point B. Okay, and then point C we'll do at 1, 3, which means I move 1 to the right, and then I go up 3, and I plot my point there, and I'll label that point C. Okay, so we just plotted points A, B, and C, and those are all in quadrant number 1. Now let's take a look at some coordinate pairs that have negatives. Okay, so our first one is 2, negative 3. So the 2 tells me, again, this is my x and my y, the 2 tells me that I need to move 2 to the right on the x-axis because it's positive. But then I need to move 3 down because I'm working with a negative number. So I start at the origin and I count to the right 2 and then down 3. And I'm going to plot right here at 2, negative 3. And sorry, just to keep this straight, we'll call that point A. Point B will be found at negative 2, 3. So that tells me I have to go to the left 2, because I'm moving negative 2 on the x-axis, and my 3 is positive, so I'm going to move up 3. So starting at the origin, I move negative 2, and then positive 3. I'll place my point right here, and we'll call that point B. And finally, our third point is at C. -2 tells me I move left 2, and -3 tells me I go down 3 because it's a negative on the y-axis. So starting at the origin, I go left 2, down 3, and I plot my point right here, and we'll call that point C. Let's see if you can apply that now to name some points that are already drawn on a coordinate grid. Pause the video and write down the coordinate pairs for point A, B, C, and D. Remember, the x-coordinate comes first, so how far right or left it is, and the y-coordinate comes second. And then push play and see how you did. All right, let's look at point A. We have to go to the right, and I see I go over 7, and then I go up 3. So, and again, you can kind of trace this on here if that helps you. I see that I have 7, 3. The x comes first, and then the y. But let's erase that. Okay. Did you get that one right? Let's see how you did on B. For B, we have this point right here. I look down and my x-coordinate is -3. And from B, I look over, my y-coordinate is a +4. Point C, this one looks kind of tricky because it falls right on the axis, okay? I have to say, well, how far over did I go from 0? I moved over -6. And then how far up did I go? I didn't go up at all. I stayed at 0. So this is -6, 0. And then our last point is point D. And I see that in order to get there, I had to move over to the right 3. So my x-coordinate is 3. And I had to go down -6. And I can see that by just following it across. Okay, this should give you enough to get your homework done tonight, which will be some graphing practice. All right, see me if you have questions with this.